Bonjour mes amis, je m'appelle Pierrette. Bienvenue dans ma cuisine. Hello everyone, I'm Pierrette and welcome to my kitchen. Today, in honor of my visiting family from Canada, we are going to make a very traditional Canadian dessert. This is called Pouding Choumeur, and it means unemployment cake. The recipe is credited to the mayor of Montreal's wife. She's the one who gets the credit for inventing this recipe. So it became popular around 1929 was the first record of it in history that they know of. They suspect due to the economic crash and the ease of making this cake with so few ingredients. It's basically a white cake and sort of an upside down caramel bottom. So we're gonna start with butter and sugar like we would with any other cake. We have a half a cup of butter and we have a half a cup of sugar. The traditional recipe, from what I understand, has 3/4 of a cup of sugar, but we don't need diabetes today. So we're gonna cut back on that sugar just a little bit because there is plenty of sugar in the caramel topping, which is actually on the bottom. So we're gonna mix up our butter and sugar. Stay with me. So we've mixed up our butter and sugar. We only need to blend it enough so that it's smooth. We don't need to try to incorporate the sugar through the butter and dissolve it. We have 1 egg. We're gonna dump that in. And this recipe doesn't call for vanilla, but you could add vanilla if you wanted to. Today we're gonna do it without vanilla. I'm just gonna scrape down the sides of the bowl so that the butter and sugar get mixed in with the egg as well as possible. And we're gonna give that a mix one more time. And this part is very simple. We have 1.5 cups of flour. I'm gonna put in about half of this, and then I'm gonna mix it. We have 3/4 of a cup of milk. So I'm gonna alternate that with the flour and mix it all in together. And then I have 3 teaspoons of baking powder. This should be a very light and fluffy cake by the time we're done with all that baking powder. So I'm gonna mix that in with my flour, and I'm gonna add that to the rest of our batter. And mix it, and then slowly pour in the rest of the milk. Seriously, that couldn't have been any easier. Just gonna scrape down the sides, make sure we don't miss any of the batter. Now we're ready for the next step, which is the caramel at the bottom of the cake. So I have a 12 by 9 Pyrex pan, and we are going to add 2 cups boiling hot water. I'm gonna put in my brown sugar first, and that is 2 cups of brown sugar. I told you there was plenty of sugar in the bottom of that. Okay, and we're gonna do 2 cups of water. So there's 1. And we do wanna stir this around and dissolve the brown sugar and butter. We need a tablespoon of butter also. So we're gonna dissolve all of that before we put our batter on top. So I'm gonna move this aside, and we're going to add 1 tablespoon of butter, and I'm gonna stir that in. Just make sure everything is dissolved before we start. And this makes a really rich caramel at the bottom of the pan as the cake bakes, and it kind of works its way into the dough or the batter a little bit as it's baking. The first time I had this, I was visiting family in Canada, and my sweet cousin A.K.A. made this for me and explained to me the history and made this yummy cake. And so her daughter, my cousin Joanne, is here visiting, and I said, I must have that recipe. So here we are. So I think we are ready to add our batter. I did forget to add the ½ teaspoon of salt to the batter. So when you do yours, that it will be in the recipe for you on the site. And I'm telling you now, so you don't forget like I did, make sure and add that ½ teaspoon of salt to your recipe. It always gets messier as we go along. I don't know why that is. I'm being very, very careful as I put this in here because this is very hot water and melted sugar, and the last thing I want to do is burn myself. So as you're adding your batter, make sure you're being very careful. You could add a little bit of maple syrup if you want that really, really classic French taste. So it doesn't require a lot of spreading. We're just going to leave it as sort of a puddle in the middle. And apparently it does its own thing. So we'll see how that works out. This is one big experiment and you're on the ride with me. So we're gonna pop this in the oven. I've got it set at 350 degrees and we'll keep checking it. And when I pull it out, I'll let you know how long it baked. So hold tight. So apparently this is what happens when you put 3 teaspoons of baking powder into a recipe. This stuff has swelled and taken over the whole pan, kind of like that spray-on insulative foam that you use to fill in all the cracks. So anyway, this is progress. We are 10 minutes in baking, and this is what it looks like. I'm very impressed. You should be too. C'est prêt! It's ready! Hear that buzzer? We're gonna get cake. I wish you could smell this. This is absolutely incredible. It's beautiful, it's golden. It is very, 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 very hot. So be very careful because this syrup will put you in the hospital. But we are gonna let this cool, and after it cools, you serve it just like you would a pudding. We're not gonna try to flip it upside down because like I said, that's a good way to go to the ER. But we are gonna let it cool and we'll serve it as a pudding in a little ramekin cup, and I'll show you what that looks like in probably at least a ½ an hour because it's gonna take a while for this to cool. We're back. It's cooled to room temperature. We baked it for 30 minutes at 350 degrees until it was golden on top and bubbling like crazy around the edges. So now I'm gonna serve it. You just take a little corner and I'm just gonna scoop it and I'm gonna kind of flip it upside down so you see this gorgeous pudding on top. And this is delicious. I know it sounds like more sugar, but if you serve it with the vanilla ice cream, it almost cuts the sugar a little bit, which sounds counterintuitive, but it really does work. So just a little tiny bit of ice cream with this, and that is our finished dessert, which I just moved all around and messed it up. But this is very, very traditional Quebecois part of Canada, which means it's from Quebec, a very French Canadian dessert, and it's very historic. I hope you'll try it. I think it's delicious. It's one of my favorite desserts that I've ever had when I've been traveling, and I wanted to share it with you. If you haven't hit the subscribe button yet, please do, and stay till the end of the video because at the end of the video we have links to other videos so that you can hang out for a while and check out our content. You guys, thanks so much for watching. Take care.